Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you new here, my name is Donna, and for those of you not new, thank you so much for continuing to come back and support my channel. I appreciate all of you so very much. Today is the next installment in my palette roulette series, in which I let an app choose a palette for me. I use it all week. I come back to you. I show you some looks that I've created with that palette, talk to you about my feelings about that palette, my overall opinion of the palette, and then we choose another one. I went a little crazy fun with my eye look. It's only the second full cut crease that I have ever done, and I really love it. Even though my son was like, "Mom, it's kind of clownish. You look like a clown." I don't care. I kind of like it. I kind of like it a lot. I don't typically like yellow eyeshadow on me in particular, but I love the yellow to pink and black, the kind of like bumblebee-esque nature of it. And this shimmer actually that's on my lid is also the gold shimmer in here, and it looks kind of green almost with that black in there. So I don't know, I kind of dig it. I just wanted to have some fun with some colors that I hadn't really tried in the palette yet, like to an extent that I really felt like I knew them. So with that being said, my palette this week is the ABH Norvina collection. This is the volume 1 palette. This is the first one that came out before the other ones rapid fired at us. And this is the first one that the whole world saw, and I love this palette. Oh my god, I sprayed too much perfume in this room. This palette costs $60, and it has 1.575 ounces or 0.063 ounces per pan. This is very much like the volume 2 palette that I did in a palette roulette earlier in 2019. I will go ahead and, well, after it came out, but obviously it was about 10 palette roulettes ago, but I will go ahead and link that up in the card so that you guys can pan right to that. This is Norvina's like quasi brand within the ABH brand. Again, that was noted in my volume 2 palette roulette video, so I'm not going to go back into that so much. On Sephora, this palette has 4.8 stars. It does have 100 reviews to accumulate that 4.8 stars. On Ulta, it has 4.7 stars with 59 reviews. And on ABH, it has 4.8 stars with 9 reviews. This is a pro pigment palette, so it is considered professional grade pigments. It has 25 shades. They range in the tone of like purples and pinks. There are some basic shadow colors in here, though. This is what the shadow palette looks like. You know, the first 3 rows really are in that purpley pinky range, and these last 2 rows here are more of your basic toned shadows. Some primary colors in there, some pinks that range right along actually an orange profile versus a pink profile or a coral. There are 17 shades in here that are not for the eye. They are going to be a 2, 3, and 5. So 2 is labeled A, B, C, D, and E, just like the other palettes. She didn't want to come up with 25 names for every single shadow that she has in here. But a 2, 3, and 5 are not for the eye. Every single one in this row except for 2, C, 4, and 5, so these 2 are not meant for the eye. Everything but number 1, not meant for the eye. And E, 1, 2, 4, and 5, so everything but this shade, not meant for the eye. I think I said this in my last Pro Pigment Volume 2 review. Not meant for the eye simply means that they are made in a way that keeps them cruelty-free, vegan, and gluten-free, so they bring in other ingredients to these shadows that make them not eye safe according to the FBI, according to the FDA. However, in the UK, they are considered eye safe. So Jen Luvs Reviews does a really good video in regards to what not eye safe means, and I will link that down in my description box. What I am telling you is that I use, and this is just personal, so if you don't feel like you can, please don't take my word as gospel. It's not what it is. I do have some eye irritation by using these shadows. Mostly it's like itchy eyes, or like maybe just dependent on what shade I'm putting into the inner corner, it might burn slightly, but not like burn. It's like you stuck your mascara wand accidentally in your eyeball, that kind of burn. I also have a lot of staining that occurs, and the staining occurs with or without some kind of eye base. So that's the biggest thing, is eye irritation and staining on the eye or on the skin. And that is why the FDA has not approved them for immediate eye use. I still use them. Obviously, I'm using some of them today. They are on my eyes, but that is why these things are not called eyeshadow palettes. They are called pro pigment palettes, or some of the other brands out there that do the same thing will just call them a palette versus an eyeshadow palette. There's my spiel on that. Again, if you are not comfortable using something that says not for immediate eye use, don't use it. This palette is probably not going to be for you. There are 17 of the 25 shades that are listed as not safe for immediate eye use. So this palette is probably not going to be for you. That being said, there are 8 shimmers in this palette. The 8 shimmers are going to be A1, A4, B2 and B3, C2 and C3, D2 and E1. There is also 2 mattes in here that do have some glitter in them, and they are D4 and B5. But with that being said, the glitter doesn't actually show up on your eyes. They perform very much like a matte. There is no glitter that shows up on your eye looks. This was supposed to be a limited edition palette, but it is still for sale. It does have a very nice size mirror in it, and that mirror does stand up on its own, both in a right angle and a little leaned back, so that you can use it as its own vanity if you are sitting at a desk and want to use it instead of like a bathroom mirror. I know I do that quite frequently when I'm staying in hotels. The hotels that I stay in, I don't find have the best lighting in the bathroom. I feel like they do this like mood lighting thing in the bathroom, which is absolutely absurd and drives me freaking bonkers. It's kind of annoying. Like, I will like sit by the window in my hotel room and do my makeup and use the mirror that is on this. I love the mirror on this palette. This palette does have all the symbols in the back that show that it is vegan, cruelty-free, it is gluten-free, it has an 18-month shelf life. They wore easily for 12 hours without fading. I had 0 problems with this palette. As far as fading, I didn't really notice any, but I do know that I did have a relatively lengthy couple of days in my last week, and I didn't really see a huge difference in the shadow that I put on my lids versus what I was taking off at night. There's a very slight fallout with some of the shades, but not many of them. There's not a lot of powderiness in the palette, so I loved that about it. It's best with a primer that has a white base to it, so like a white base primer, maybe even an eye crayon that is white. I know P. Louise has a white base primer, or a primer that P. Louise has a ton of primers for your eyes that actually have a color to them. So if you're using like a black eyeshadow, you can have a black base. One of those would be perfect. I don't think that these shadows work super great with tacky eye primers at all. I think they do better with a creamy eye primer that you can actually put on, you know, the white that's in here that is actually in my brow bone today is an amazing shade for this white here. It's an amazing shade to lay over the top of a regular eye primer and give it that white base effect honestly. It's also a good shade for like toning down some of the shades that you might go into heavy with. Because it is a pressed pigment palette, it does not take very much to get that full blast of opacity that you're looking for with these shadows. All of the shimmers in here performed quite well. The only one that I really saw some kind of issue with was this one here. It is one of my favorites in the palette. This is what it looks like here. It tends to kind of sheer out a little bit on application to the eye. It's like this really beautiful like indigo blue, right? Indigo is the color that's kind of purple and blue mixed, right? Kind of like a blue violet, I think. That is what that shade is. And it is so, so pretty, but you really do kind of have to build it up a wee bit. That is the only shimmer in this palette that I had some serious problems with, but some of the mattes really do require more work. Some of the mattes that are going to require a little more work for you are like A2 right here, B4 right here, C4, D3 right here, and E5 right here. So I did use this one today. It is kind of the darker shade along that cut crease right there. It did require me going in several times, blending it out, and then like patting it back on and blending it out so it wasn't such a harsh line, but it did require quite a bit of work for me today. It is a color that I had used before in a couple other eye looks, kind of like this oxblood like burgundy-esque brown feel to it, and it looks very, very pink in my eye look. But with that being said, it is coupled actually with this one right next to it, which for you guys looks like a pink, but for me it's like this neon orange color. It actually is listed on the website as a matte bright orange. It definitely does not look orange in my eye look. It is this color here, and like all throughout like the upper portion, and it definitely looks pink. So maybe that's my skin tone mixed with that color. I'm not really sure what happened there, but maybe it's the burgundy that turned it more pink. But I will tell you, I went in several times with that orange and that burgundy to build up this cut crease, and this is what I turned out with. I kind of dig it. I kind of am happy with it. So there were some issues in the last one that I talked a lot about. Oxidation of some colors. I talked a lot about lifting of some colors that were happening in this formula. And what I will say is I did notice a little teeny bit of lifting in certain colors. B4, so this dark purple color that I talked about a minute ago that is going to take you a little bit more work to get through. I did note some lifting in that shade. Sorry, there's cats and squirrels playing around in my backyard, so it's interesting to watch it. That is going to have a little bit of lift in it, but not much. Not nearly as bad as some of the blues in the last palette were. I think that really is the only one that I really noticed some lifting happening, and I didn't notice any oxidation in this palette until today, putting this yellow on. I don't know if it's super apparent, but right at the edge of where it is touching that shimmer, it has turned a little more mustardy or orange than it is yellow. And I don't think that you guys can see that, but I can. And you might be able to see it in a picture. Maybe I can like zoom into that one spot and you might be able to see it more in a picture. But that yellow is the only one that I really noticed any kind of oxidation in. Oh, that cat's gonna get that squirrel. I would say that this one is brown enough that I don't really see any kind of oxidation in that guy at all. These palettes are $60 a piece. They are pretty expensive, and if you are faint at heart, do not want to spend that kind of money on a palette, I get it. I totally get it. I got all three of them. They rocket fired at us about 2 weeks apart, each one of them, and I got all three of them for just over $70 because I had some coupons and stuff going on. So I got a really good deal on these palettes. This one was so much easier to use, so much easier to look at and see like a color story that I wanted to put onto my eyeballs. It wasn't as chaotic as the blue one. So far, this is my favorite of the two, even though I love the color scheme in the blue one. I feel like it really hones in that blue-green scheme, that blue-green color story, more so than this one does really the purple color story, with those last two rows being more primary in tone and more of that pop of color that you would. I wish the whole palette was purples and pinks, but the blue one, there was a lot of redundancy in that palette. So I get maybe why this one doesn't have, you know, 5 rows of purples and pinks, although I think that they could have come up with some. What I will say is this palette reminds me a lot of some other palettes in the ABH world that I think it would dupe itself. I think that this one has a lot of shades similar with Riviera. It probably has a lot of shades similar with the Alyssa Edwards palette. It has a lot of shades similar with its counterparts, with its volume 2 and volume 3. This one in and of itself doesn't have a whole lot of blue in it, but I feel like there might actually be some similar tones in it as the volume 2, only because I've already used that palette, and I know just looking at it without having used volume 3 that there's probably quite a few that are going to be the same as what's in volume 3. So maybe slight tones of difference, or slight 1/2 millimeter of pigment more than a tone in another palette, but I think that this could probably be duped out by one ABH palette or another. Maybe. But I love this palette nonetheless. It's not going anywhere. I'm so happy to have it in my collection. I'm going to do some swatches for you guys. Okay, so we just have A, B, C, and D, and E as our colors. So I'm not gonna like give you names because there is no names, but we'll just swatch row at a time. So the first row, A1. It's this really pretty like lilac shimmer. It has a wee bit of an iridescent feel to it. It definitely can shift like purple or blue or even pink depending on what you have on your eye look to go with it. A2 is a matte like bright violet. A3 is a matte deep plum. A4 is a beautiful shimmer copper shade. And A5, to bring it all together, is a matte bubblegum pink. Row B. Row B1 is this shade here. It is a matte fuchsia shade. Then we have B2, which is a shimmer bronze, which kind of leans a little bit rose gold. Then we have B3, which is a shimmer bubblegum pink with kind of like it feels like a blue base to it. Then we have B4, which is a beautiful matte medium purple. And then we have B5, which is a matte medium plum. This one does have a little bit of shimmer in it, but again, it's not something you can see in the shadow once it's on your eyes. There's quite a bit of staining that's going on. I'm pretty certain that you guys can see it all along my fingers and on my hands. It is quite pink. Okay, row C. We have first this one. It is the matte white shade. You guys can see that it is very white. It is a very nice white. It is what's in my brow bone today. It's a very beautiful brow bone color. I did use it as a brow bone shade often. This is C2, and it is just a shimmer, really yellow gold shade. This one is in my eye look as well. It's merging the yellow and the black and looks actually kind of green in my eye look today. C3 is this one. It is a shimmer copper red tone. It is really, really pretty. Then we have C4, which actually I swatched horribly, probably because it's on my pinky. But this is one also that I think I told you guys would take a little more effort to blend. It really is a beautiful shade. It is a matte, like berry mauve tone, but it does take quite a bit to blend it. And then C5 is that matte, like red brown shade. And that is the colors up close. know if I swatched the last palette because there are so many shades in it. I think I just went through like my favorites in the palette. I cannot remember. But I know that typically when we have a palette with several shades in it, I swatch not, because it takes for flippin' ever to do. Also because I'm kind of a horrible swatcher, but that was before I started swatching on my hands, I do believe. All right, row D, we have this one, which is a matte yellow. It is just a really primary yellow tone. It is what is on my eye look today. Then we have this one here, which is the shimmer indigo blue shade that I told you was a little more sheer in nature. This is it, and it is a little bit sheared out, and you guys will see when I get up close to you, it kind of has a little purple shift to it. Then we have this one, which is your matte red tone. It is truly a true red. Then we have this one, which is a matte cobalt, but it does have some glitter in it. This is the one that is more of a glitter matte. It does have quite a bit of glitter in it, but it performs like matte on your eyes. You can't really see the glitter. And then you have your matte black. That is those shades close up. I don't know if you guys can see the purple shift in that second blue. There you go. A little bit of a purple shift there. The first one we have here, E1, is a really pretty shimmer coral shade. And then we have E2, which is a matte orange. It's really a very like pumpkin orange shade. Then we have E3, which is a mustard yellow. Then we have E4, which is categorized as a neon orange, but you guys can see it shows up really red on here. It is one of those ones that I told you is going to take a lot of extra help to blend, and in my eye look it looks very pink. And then E5 is this like burgundy shade. So there's those. So I think some of my favorite shades in the palette were actually the hardest ones to use. I really, really, really love the purples in here. I really also really loved the shimmers. Like these shimmers were some of my favorites in all of my ABH palettes, and I think the reason why is because they're a little more firmly pressed in here. You can put your finger into them, they feel like butter, but they're not gonna like melt underneath your finger. And I know they don't melt, but like with my ABH Norvina palette, not my Norvina collection palettes, but my ABH Norvina palette, looked like I had torn through that palette over the last 8 months after my first time of use, because the shimmers in that palette were just so soft that you barely tapped in, barely dug in with your brush, and you could see the indent that you were making in that pan. And while I think that is great to have a creamy shimmer, it is possible to have a creamy shimmer without it being to that extent. And this is proof. This is proof that that happens. I think that even with the volume 2, I loved the shimmers in that palette. The E1 here, E1 right here, probably one of my favorites in here, just because it's kind of got this coral to gold shift to it. This D2, beautiful because it looks blue and purple all at the same time. It can meld any of the eye looks in this palette together to make it one. I love this palette. There are some mattes that feel a little bit more dry than others, but all of them have this really creamy, buttery, finely milled fill to them that is appropriate for Norvina. Did a really good job with these palettes. Like I am not going to come out her and say these are horrible. They're not. I would venture to say I like them better than the formula is different than the ABH formula. But I would venture to say that I like them better than the ABH formula just because I feel like they're more pigmented, more opaque, and they feel just as good and sometimes better to the touch. One thing I don't like about them is the shimmers definitely perform better using your finger, and if y'all have been around for a while, you do know that I don't like dipping my finger into my makeup, but I have found that if I use like foam applicators that come with old school eyeshadow palettes or like Avon eyeshadow palettes or whatever, you can buy them now that are long and look like they come with your kits, with your regular brush kits. I use those when I apply them too if there's something that I don't want to apply with my finger. I'm not finding much value in applying them with my finger. They also apply very well with a wet brush, but I feel like they show more texture on my eyelid when I apply them with a wet brush than they do when I use my fingers. If you guys want me to go through other ABH palettes and do like a swatch party of comparisons, I do think that Jen from Jen Luvs Reviews has done that, and if I can find it, I will link it down in my description box. But if you guys want me to do that too, I can. I do have a good majority of the ABH palettes. If you guys want me to do a comparison video comparing these to some other ABH palettes, I will definitely do that. Just let me know. I did use every single shade in this palette. I did enjoy my time with it, and if you want specifics on an eye look, let me know. I will tell you what shades I used in this palette. So for those of you who are new, this is the point in the video where I come to you and we roll for a new palette, which I can't say I'm happy about. I'm really sad to see this one come out of my collection. Not out of my collection, but out of my rotation. I feel like I've said that about the last two, so I'm really in this place where I kind of feel like the next one's gonna be a dud, just because I have like several good ones and then a dud and then several good ones and then a dud, and I just don't want it to be a dud. I do have some new palettes that I haven't put into my wheel yet. I haven't shared them with you guys. I cannot wait to use them though. My friend Grace, hey Grace, she knows all about them. P.S. my budget for February, toast. It's what, the 10th, and I've already spent it and then some. So I told you guys I wasn't gonna come and feel bad for overspending on my budget. I really had great intentions, but then Grace called me and said, hey girl, I have this and what do you think? And I said, yes please, because there wasn't going to be another chance. So there's that. It's all Grace's fault. Blame Grace. I'm just kidding. I love you, Grace. Thank you guys for following along with that crazy tangent. So for those of you new here, I do use a decision wheel app that I pick up in my app store, Play Store. I do have a Samsung Note 9. It is Android, so I picked up a decision wheel app out of our Play Store and I use it. When I get new palettes in, I do put them into this app, and when I use them, I do take them out of the app. So as we are moving palettes in and moving them out through Palette Roulette, they are coming, incoming, outgoing as far as this goes. It does stay updated. To pick the new palette, we just spin the wheel, and to do that, we just hit that button right there and we spin it. We have the Winky Luxe Mermaid Kitten palette. I don't think I've used this palette. Let me go find that. I'll be right back. I think I'm sad because that was a really big palette. I had lots of options, and this week I don't have a whole lot of options. I do love Winky Luxe though as a brand. One of my favorite palettes. I got a BoxyCharm from them, and it is a well-loved palette. It is, I think it's just called the Kitten palette, Winky Luxe Kitten palette. I still have it in my collection. It was sitting right next to this one, but this is the palette that we have for this week. It is called the Winky Luxe Mermaid Kitten palette. You guys will see on the palette the motif is kittens that have mermaid tails. So I'm super excited about that. This is the front of the palette. This is the back of the palette, and it does show the different shades on the palette. I don't think that that does the shades in this palette justice though, because they do feel a little bit darker than what it shows on the outside of the palette. This is the palette that we are using this week. It's along the lines of that, you know, pastel vibe that I didn't get on with very well with NYX Air, or a couple other. I think the Lorac 3 was also kind of more pastel than it was cool tone, I guess, more than it was anything else. But I really like the Winky Licks formula. I'm really excited to try this palette. We will give it a go. It has not been used. I've had this in my collection I don't know how long, and it's never been used. I'm not even gonna pretend like it surprises me that this hasn't been used, but there's probably quite a few in my collection that haven't been used, so let's just go there. I'm excited to come back to you next week and talk to you about this palette. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, I hope that you are considering giving it a big thumbs up. It really does help our channels out here. I also hope that you'll consider subscribing to my channel before you go. It's super free. I do these videos every single Monday. I also have 2 additional videos that go up every single week on Wednesday and Friday, and I have a Sunday video, every other Sunday video that comes at you too. I hope that you guys let me know down in the comment section what palette you're using in your Palette Week series, if you are using a different palette week over week, if you're playing this crazy game with me. I would really love to know your thoughts on the palette that you're using. If you've used the Norvina Collection Volume 1 palette in the past, let me know where I can go watch some videos of yours, or just let me know your thoughts. I do love the conversation down in the comment section, so please let me know your thoughts. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you're having an amazing February, and until next time, guys, bye. There, and I just bit my tongue. That freaking hurt.